Some miniatures go wrong, but this one's not going in the bin. Most failed paint jobs come down to just one thing: paint that's far too thick. Instead of building thin layers, the model gets buried. Edges soften. Details disappear. And the miniature loses all its definition. The first step is to strip the miniature. Ethanol or isopropyl alcohol works extremely well for acrylic paint. Give your mini a bath. 1 to 2 hours will be plenty. Leave the model to soak and the paint will begin to soften. After soaking, the paint comes away with a soft toothbrush. Work gently into the recesses and the original sculpt will start to reappear. And just like that, the miniature is ready to start again. Fix problems before paint ever touches the model. I like to start with a black primer first. Applying a light coloured primer, light grey or white, on top of a black primed mini, a technique known as zenithal priming, is done to combine the benefits of both colours, deep natural shadows in the recesses and bright vibrant surfaces where the light hits. Painting on pure black can make fine details hard to see, leading to missed spots. A light spray from above brings back the details, making it easier to see where you are painting. The light primer acts as a map, showing you immediately where to place your highlights and where to keep your shadows. I'll start with black Templar contrast paint on the face, neck and boots. To get a nice solid black, I'll use 2 coats. Don't worry if you make any mistakes at this stage, you can easily paint over them with Corax white. While we're doing that, just use some of that white to carefully lighten the eye. I'm going to use Talassar blue contrast and paint the eyes. Now let's move on to the cloak. I'm using Averland Sunset for the lining. I've thinned it down. Start at the top and let your brush follow it down. Again, 2 coats should be enough. I'm using Blood Angel's Red contrast paint. Start at the top, paint over the chest, all the way to the bottom. I've also painted the hands, sleeves, and that little bit of fabric that no one seems to know what it's called. I'm going to paint the outside of the cloak with Evil Sunz Scarlet. Work from the top down as before. Try and keep your brush strokes in one direction for a smoother finish. When you come close to the areas you've already painted, use the edge of the brush to get a nice clean line. Once you have a nice solid colour, we'll switch to Abaddon black. We're going to paint the belt pouches, the belt, the spear handle, and the belt at the back. Once the black's complete, we can move right on to the gold. I'm going to use Retributor Armour for the gold base. As usual, I've thinned it down a little. We're going to cover all the chest pieces, the wrist bangles, the helmet, the spear, and those things at the back. Once you're happy with the gold, we'll move on. To paint the pouch and the strap, I'm going to use Deathclaw brown. And to finish the spear, I'm using a nice turquoise from Vallejo. And with that, we've finished the base coating. A good contrast to the red of the Sime Ham is Druchi Violet. And this is what we're going to use for shading. Start at the top and apply it all over. On the helmet, it forms a perfect base for that classic pearlescent look. It works well on the gold, as well as the robes. Make sure you wick up any excess pooling. Once this layer is completely dry, we're going to bring those colours back to life. Wash the helmet in thinned Corax white, leaving the darker shadows. Once dry, you can apply highlights using a pure white. I'm going to use white from Vallejo. To bring back the colour on the robes, I'm going to use Mephiston red. Thin it down and use a little on your brush. It's easy to see where the shadows and the highlights are on the robes. Pro tip: paint horizontally across where we want the highlight. Work on each of the creases until we're happy with the amount of shadow. Using Deathclaw brown and Evil Sunz Scarlet, repeat the process for the inside and the outside of the cloak. Make sure to leave shadows around the gemstones, fingers, gold, and anywhere else you feel needs it. Now we've done the red, let's get the gold back up. If this was an ordinary trooper, we'd finish the base and call it done. But the Seer leads the combat patrol and deserves more from us. So this time we'll push ourselves a bit further by adding more depth to the mini. Using Evil Sunz Scarlet, apply a highlight on the brightest parts of the robe. Make sure the paint is thinned down and build the colour up gradually. Once this is done, we'll move on to the hands and sleeves. Now we'll take a drop of Averland Sunset and Evil Sunz Scarlet and blend the two together. And using this lighter red, we'll build up the highlights on the cloak. Once again, thin the paint down and build those highlights up slowly, making it lighter towards the edges. Once we're happy with this layer, it's time to move on. Using Leadbelcher, paint each of the gemstones, just leaving a gold rim around the outside. Then, once it's dry, apply Talassar blue contrast paint over the stone. Apply a second coat of the blue to one half of the gem, leaving it to dry thoroughly. Pro tip: use a cocktail stick to add a small white dot to the top and a half moon to the base. Now's the time to fix any mistakes. For the base, I'm just going to use some black Templar contrast before dry brushing with a mixture of that black and some white. And then finally finishing it with a much lighter grey. And that's pretty much the Seer done. We'll add some tufts of grass and just use some Abaddon black to clean up the base. Now, we just need to add the transfers. Because this is a Saimham Farseer, I'll put the World Serpent on the back and the Farseer runes on the front. And that's the Farseer done. Now you've fixed the model, it's time to fix the table. Terrain builds next.